It's Monday, and you know what that means. It's IndyCar night in America. The IndyCars have had a short but tragic history here at Charlotte, from a canceled appearance in the 1980 USAC Champ Car calendar in the middle of the first IndyCar Civil War, to a suspended race in 1999 due to crash debris entering the stands and killing 3 spectators. IndyCar has seemingly been cursed at Charlotte and have never come back. However, tonight, thanks to iRacing, the iRacing IndyCar community, and the safety of computer simulation technology, IndyCar's return as part of the iRacing's NTT IndyCar Series Fixed 2021 Season 4 schedule. Hello again, everybody. I am Gary Gotso, and welcome to Race First coverage of Round 4 of Monday Night Indy Split, coming to you tonight from the Legacy Charlotte Motor Speedway. Joining me for expert analysis in the booth from the NHR eSports team in the Lionheart IndyCar Series is Steven Larkamp.
Well, it's certainly shaping up to be a fantastic night here tonight. It's great to be joining you all tonight on this one. Charlotte Motor Speedway, of course, as I'm sure you all know, not exactly a track with a long history in IndyCar, but when it did, it was not all that pretty. But at least here, we have the opportunity to have a spectacular show tonight, as the IndyCars usually do here. This track it may be an old school track as far as NASCAR fans are concerned and racing fans in general are concerned, but this is a track that is not all that familiar to people outside the IndyCar community within iRacing, but it's still a favorite of a lot of drivers here regardless. I can definitely see a lot of good action happening tonight on the high banks here at Charlotte.
There you see, with about 2 minutes left, Demerit on the pole with a 2:17.231. That's not quite up to the track record yet. But real quick, Steven, the Lionheart Series last visited here Charlotte, the Legacy Charlotte, back in 2018 with the pre-aero screen IR18 Dallara. With that in mind, and fast forwarding to now, what can our participants expect as this race gets underway and unfolds into the night?
Well, broadly speaking, the aero screen, a lot of drivers, when it first came out, have complained that it impedes their vision, which is certainly understandable in many ways. But over time, these drivers have certainly gotten used to it, especially the drivers you see here tonight, who have a lot of experience with this car in the time that the aero screen has been around. So they are able to compensate for it. And if anything, it may be a small thing, but they don't have to worry too much about tear-offs these days. But one thing I have noticed is that when the aero screen was put on there, the cars do seem to be slightly faster in a straight line, generally speaking. The rounded curves of the aero screen do help a little bit. It's not too terribly much, but generally speaking, it can help on the straights. But drafting is still going to be a big part of the straights, but the aero push is still going to be a major concern in the corners, as a lot of drivers came to expect with the IndyCar. That problem is still something the drivers are going to have to compensate for. They're going to have to use the tools in the car, their weight jacker, to make the car tighter or looser as they would like, as well as the anti-roll bars to soften or stiffen the front and rear suspensions. So it's going to be an interesting game to see what drivers make what work. It's going to be and overall, with the amount of talent here, the SOF of this race, about 3,700 I rating, if I recall my notes correctly. So this is going to be a very competitive night. Christopher Demerit, as we mentioned before, the only driver to break into the zeros right now, 24.096, with Pablo Diaz-Frances running second, and the rest of the field, the top 9 drivers are within the same 10th of a second, and as you come to expect with high split IndyCars, this is going to be quite an interesting show.
Despite IndyCar not being here for over 20 years, the open wheelers still hold the current track record set by a driver who found success jumping from IndyCar to NASCAR. Like our Leyendyke's 1996 track record in Indianapolis, this one's going to stand for a long time. Set back in 1998 and qualifying for the Indy Racing League's Visionaire 500, at the time reigning IRL champion and future 3-time Cup champion Tony Stewart turned a lap of 24.490 seconds. Or, if you want to do the speed, 220.498. So you saw they're about 3 miles per hour shy of that. But it was good enough to put his Team Menard Dallara Oldsmobile Firestone car package on the pole, edging down his future Team Menard teammate and IRL champ Greg Ray by a scant half mile an hour. By comparison, the current NASCAR track record is ironically held by a driver who made the opposite jump as Stewart. He went from NASCAR to IndyCar, and that's none other than Kurt Busch. The 2014 Indy 500 Rookie of the Year had a busy season that year as he set time in qualifying for the Fall Cup Series, with a time of 27.167 seconds, or a speed of 198.771 miles per hour. If you do the math at home, it's advantage IndyCar here by 21 miles an hour. The turns are banked at 24 degrees, the straight's at 5, it's fast, it's narrow, it's bumpy. This version of the track is as close as these drivers are going to get, replicating the track conditions of the first Indy Racing League race in '98. And with that, it's time to look forward to tonight's starting lineup.
Your front row tonight, the number 1 machine of Christopher Demerit takes that pole position. He's joined alongside the number 2 of Pablo Diaz-Francis, the top 2 in iRating here tonight, starting from the front row.
P3, Nacho LDR. P4, Adriano Fraporti. P5, Oscar Sid. And P6, Matthew Mercer. P7, Diego Perino, my buddy. P8, Thomas Geisler, also the old man of the group. Wishing him well. P9, Trace Shadid. P10, Dakota Maid, another good friend of the program. P11, Mark Murphy. P12, Stephen Lee. P13, Alan Morera. P14, John Silva. P15, Christian Hassan. P16, Victor Santos. P17, Daniel Refero. P18, Yvonne Drolet. And we'll get down to the last couple. P19, Aaron Roofs. P20, Andre Ragon. And P21, rounding out your field, James Kennedy.
21 drivers starting off in this top split here tonight. 75 laps we've got here tonight. We're looking for pit stops to be opening in earnest around lap 24 or 25. So we are going to have to work on those strategies quite a bit here as the pace car pulls off. Demerit, he's on the gas. Green flag flies. We are underway at Charlotte. Demerit with a good start. Meanwhile, Diaz and Nacho already getting into a tussle now for second position as they work their way through turn number 2. Everyone getting themselves into good order so far. Francis already looking to make a move. Looking at on the low side of Demerit, doesn't quite get alongside him at the moment. Demerit leads the first lap. And Francis once again looks down low. They are too wide going through turn numbers 1 and 2. Francis and Demerit. Francis holding that low line. Looks to get a good run down the backstretch here. He may well clear him here. And he does so.
Clear, yeah. So these, I think these tires are going to give up here in about 10 laps or so. And then after this, it's kind of going to hold positions or wait for the car in front of you to kind of make a mistake. It's not going to be much of a pack race. Also, it's definitely not going to be a pack race because it's held during the day and the track temperature is kind of up there. But these guys are going to find a pretty difficult going when the tires go away sitting there in turn 4. It acts kind of like a funnel, doesn't it?
It typically is the case. The tires do tend to wear off pretty noticeably on these Indy cars, and it's very hard to make the pass work here, especially in daytime conditions where the track temps are a lot hotter, as Demerit continues to look for a way to get back past Francis, or at the very least get some clean air on his front wing so he has the grip he needs, and a way to preserve the tires as he is looking to the outside going into turn 1. Does not quite manage to stay alongside Francis. He ducks back behind him, and now he's looking down low for 3 and 4.
A little bit further back in the pack. A little bit further back in the pack. Sorry, right around P9, 10, and 11. They were battling it really hard. We were looking at Diego Perino and Andriato Fraporti, Victor Santos, right around in there. They were all within a tenth of a second and racing each other hard. Right now, let's take a look at Dakota DeMed and his kind of his corporate teammate, Thomas Geisler. They were about side by side there, but they're probably working together, and they want to get right back in line, single file, so they don't waste any time with losing the pack in front of them.
That very much is the case, and all this battling so far, the leaders right now, Demerit and Francis, have pulled out a gap as they continue to go too wide down the back straightaway, but they've already pulled out a 1-second lead over Nacho in third place, and he in turn has an 0.8 of a second lead over Fraporti running in fourth, as Francis still holding that high line pretty well. He is actually going to lead that lap. So this two-wide battle doesn't look like it's ending for another few laps or so, as Francis does clear him and holds on to that top spot.
Currently watching on our screen a battle for P6 between Diego Perino and Matthew Mercer.
And for these guys in particular, these guys in the mid-pack here, they are definitely going to be playing around with the tools in their car a lot more than the leaders would be. Whereas Francis and Demerit right now have that clean air to work with, these guys don't have that luxury right now, and that dirty air is going to be hurting them in terms of tire degradation and overall grip. So they are going to have to mess around with their weight jacker and their anti-roll bar to have the cars driving the way they want them to. A lot more than the leaders are, that's for certain.
What's the difference between the high line and the low line here in terms of tire wear?
Well, typically in my experience, the high line, it puts less load on the tires overall. But the main thing but in the end, it can be a benefit, it can be a disadvantage at the time, but that's largely down to the aero push. Because with the lack of grip going over the front of the car, you are going to have to fight the wheel a lot harder, and that in turn leads to degradation in of itself.
Currently watching Pablo Diaz-Francis. P1 currently right now on the racetrack. P2 is Christopher Demerit. He has fallen back just a little bit, about a half second back. Nacho LDR is in P3. And as you see that he has about a second and a tenth back to Andrea Forporti right there. Oscar Sid P5, and we have caution on the racetrack.
Caution is out on the racetrack.
Nice. That was cool.
Someone wrecked right in front of the leaders. I did not get a chance to see who that was initially, but someone was definitely around coming off of turn number 2.
Okay. Let's and actually I got the
and we found it. It is in fact the number 11 machine of Alexandre Rigon, who is spun around coming off of turn number 2. Unfortunate for him, he was actually towards the back of the pack already. He was having to fight his way up through the field. Was not, but unfortunately something bad must have gone wrong with him, and he actually found himself in the. And actually, we did find that happen, and that all began nearly half a lap prior, coming off of turn number 4.
Yeah, it looks like one of the cars involved here is John Silva, and we'll get a look here what happened to him. This driver that's been involved in all the top split races basically that I've been involved with. Currently, it looks like he is done for the night. We might have had 2 separate incidents going on at the same time. Yeah, he just goes right up into the wall, gets the 11 car right behind him collected. That's where Rigon got the damage, and that's where things started to go south going into turns 2 and down the backstretch. So a little bit of a chain reaction there that actually took pretty much most of the racetrack to unfold, but they're all pitting right now. Actually, quite a few people are pitting. Let's get back to live TV here. Looks like
an interesting turn of events right now with the strategy right now, because one of the leaders, Christopher Demerit, he has come down the pit road for fresh fuel and for Firestone tires. But the leader, Pablo Diaz-Francis, he's actually stayed out. So is Adriano Forporti and Oscar Seed. So they are going to be going for a bit of a different strategy. It's only lap 14 at the moment, so
about 10 laps early.
Now, it is 10 laps earlier than the normal fuel window would suggest. But my assumption there is that Demerit and the rest of these guys are going to be banking on some yellow flags happening later on in the run to top off the fuel. So a bit of different strategies will always often come into play here in the IndyCar Fix Series in iRacing. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, what this gamble by Demerit and company, and by Francis and by Francis Forporti and Seed, see what they're going to have to do, because they're going to be at a noticeable disadvantage on tires when we go back to green.
Yeah, also the top 6 all stayed out. 7th place on back stopped, and that is led by Christopher Demerit. So he's going to have the freshies if he chose to change them. Remember, you only have 2 sets of tires in the... Well, actually, you start with 3. 1 on the car and 2 in the pits. And if you changed them already, he only has 1 more set of tires to go the distance. That might be detrimental, that if there's going to be another late caution, some of these guys might have the freshies sitting back there ready to go, slap them on, and maybe overcome Demerit in like a late 5-lap sprint or something, where he's on on tires that are about 40 laps old. So we're going to see how these strategies are going to unfold, starting from 7th place on back. So currently your leader is Pablo Diaz-Frances, followed by Adriano Fraporti, Oscar Sid, Thomas Geisler, Trey Shadid, Daniel Raffaero. First car taking a pit stop, Christopher Demerit, Nacho LDR, Matthew Mercer, and in P10, teammate to Pablo Diaz-Frances, Diego Perino.
And it is going to be very much interesting to see, with 6 drivers staying out on old tires. It's going to be interesting to see how well they can hold on to that track position. And in particular, I have noticed that the 21 machine of Daniel Raffaero, he started 17th. He's currently in 6th with this strategy call. So this seems to be a bold gambit for track position here. And in these cases in particular, these guys are going to be hoping for another caution to come out in the next few laps to be able to maintain that position for as long as they possibly can. So it's going to be interesting to see see how well the strategy holds out for these guys.
Raffaero up 11 since the start of the race, so he is our big gainer. Now, granted, he gained some of that during the pit stop cycle, but still, you gotta drive the car, right? So he is our big gainer with up 11. Shadid up 4, or Thomas Geisler up 4, Oscar Sid up 2, Adriano Fraporti up 2, and Pablo Diaz-Frances up from his 2nd starting spot at the start of the race. We are getting ready to go green. And Pablo Diaz-Frances is a quick starter. All these guys on the Nikkei Racing team are quick starters. They do not waste time once the pace car clears. And there he goes. Just as I said, we're back underway. Green flag, lap 16 going into 17.
Francis with a very good start. Fraporti did his level best to stay with him there. He's already opened up a bit of a gap over Oscar Sid as they make their way into turn 1. But Geisler and Sid are going to be going at it coming off of turn number 2. But Sid actually looks like he's got a run coming down the backstretch on Fraporti.
Yeah, draft's playing a major role there.
Very much so. Remember, folks watching at home, keep an eye on the driver sitting in 7th right now, Christopher Demerit, followed by Nacho LDR and Matthew Mercer. They actually have just gotten by Raffaero. Demerit already up to 6th. So already those fresh tires are starting to work the way he's wanted them to.
Yeah, he got a massive run down that backstretch and is pretty much going to capture Trey Shadid here in almost no time. He's right with him at 1. He's going to probably be on that attenuator by the end of the backstretch.
And you can see him working that higher line there, whereas Shadid was working the low line. For a lot of people who may not be entirely familiar why he would want to do that, it's on, and the line you're running is not as big a deal here at a track like Charlotte with high banks, where the downforce on the car is going to be doing a lot of work to have the grip you want. What you want to have is clean air running over the car. You don't want to be running in the wake of the car in front of you when you go into the corner, but you do want that on the straightaways when that's going to help you in the draft. So it's fine. So it's become a game right now for Demerit of find the clean air as he tries to work away around Trey Shadid. He's looking to the outside now going into turn 1.
Yeah, Trace is going to mount that, put that car right down there on that white line and just hold his line. He does have the quicker line, but Christopher Demerit actually has the draft of the car in front of him, as well as the momentum around the high side. This time looks like Nacho LDR went to the low side while Trace was trying to guard the high side, and he took the hole there. So you need to keep your head on a swivel, especially when you got guys with fresh tires around you.
It's always the game you got to play with this, being as attentive to the situation at hand and playing and making the right moves to hold on to that position, especially when you know going into the strategy you have a disadvantage in your raw pace with the tire degradation you're already having here. As we're working lap 23 right now, we are getting close to that pit window opening. These cars have around 50 laps of worth of fuel in the tank, a bit more if they save. But generally speaking, that number is your safe number. If you could get it to lap 25 and you come in for your pit stop, you technically don't need to stop until the end of the race. Of course, if you still have tires remaining and there is a late caution, I can see a lot of these guys coming back onto pit road.
This is the closest battle on the racetrack that you're watching right now. The battle for fourth place between Thomas Geisler in P4, Christopher Demerit in P6. These new tires, they're only good for a finite amount of time, and then they start to wear off. And he only has a certain number of laps left here before he is pretty much on par with the cars around him, and he's going to have a heavier tank.
And another thing that may be something of a surprise to the viewers at home who are not familiar with the Indy cars. They may be wondering, well, if the tires are older, they'd just be getting slower and slower and slower. There does come a point where they become rather equal to each other in terms of raw pace, where a tire that is, say, a few laps older than the tires around them doesn't exactly lead to the same amount of drop-off that you would expect. So these guys are really going to have to make hay while they can and get themselves up there, as Demerit looks all over the gearbox right now of Thomas Geisler for fourth position.
Riding on board with Christopher Demerit and his IR18 Dallara. Currently you see him going through the gearbox, currently in fifth gear, hitting sixth gear because of the draft, making that high line, dropping to fourth, as low as fourth. So actually we got three racing gears in these guys, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Sixth is mainly there for passing when you hit the rev limiter. There you go, see him going to the sixth, going to the low side, and he gingerly walks that around, and looks like he is a clear, and now he sets sail to the top three. But your leader, Pablo Diaz-Francis, has set off to a 2.5 second lead.
Geisler is not giving up that position easily. He has indeed gotten back ahead of Demerit. I think we are around the point where Demerit's tires are running about equal on pace, as now he works the high line and he does indeed clear him. But we are getting closer and closer to the point where where that advantage in tires is going to be a bit negligible at this point. So this is about, so unless Demerit can really use his tools well and save his tires well for later in the run, which you can certainly do in this car, you are going to have to run the wheels off this car if he is going to.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, easy for me to say right now, but I can tell you right now, it is not as easy as it looks. Driving these Indy cars may look all like flat out and turning left, but I guarantee you it ain't. As right now, if we look at the leader, Pablo Diaz-Francis has opened up a near 3-second lead over Adriano Frapporti. He is flying right now.
Yeah, and he's actually coming up to some lap traffic that's going to be right in front of him, so we'll see how he negotiates that. It'll probably be the first time tonight that he experiences a little bit of the aero wash. I would assume, though, that driver probably has their relative on and probably won't make much work for Pablo Diaz-Francis to get around. But we'll see. Here they go together in turns 1 and 2.
I believe that you can fight to stay on the lead lap in this series, but it is somewhat of a faux pas, I guess you could put it that way.
Yeah, and that was Yvon Drolet. And he just stayed right up along the wall there and let the drivers go. You do have a right to fight for staying on the lead lap. But if you're just not handling it or it's just not in it tonight, it's probably all the best just to let the car go. You don't want to be that guy that wrecks the leader in one of these races.
And in Drolet's case, that is certainly the case. He is 7 laps down at the moment. I did see him come on the pit road soon after the green flag flew for the start of the race. So Drolet has had a torrid night so far. Big shame for the driver of the number 19 machine.
Checking on the status of our first car with fresh tires, Christopher Demerit. He is now into P4. So he's well within the top 5, but he is about a half second, 0.6, to Oscar Sid right in front of him. Oscar Sid is about a second back from Frapporti, and Frapporti is 3.5 back from Francis and losing ground every single lap.
It really is interesting that is the case. Francis on that last lap was a 24.855. Frapporti was a 24.971. That may not sound like
trouble on the racetrack. Trouble on the racetrack. We got Diego Pirino. Looks like he might have had an incident. He fell a ton of spots. Let's go back and see what happened. Possibly he was really, really slow. Oh, that's what happened. Okay, so this is... He just gets loose off of turn 4. That is very common here, and he skids right through the infield, collects it, brings it back onto the track safely, but Diego Perino has lost a ton of positions.
Yeah, and that's always a scary moment when the back end gets out away from you. And
now, is that a sign of too much weight jacker that he's using, possibly?
It could possibly be so, especially when I can imagine like he was working it quite a bit in the draft there. I obviously can't tell for certain looking at the cockpit, but he may have had it a bit high there. And as the tires go away, high weight jacker, while it may seem like it may be a good thing for you, there is such thing as too much of a good thing, and too much weight jacker can come back to bite you.
Well, let's keep an eye on the leaders. Pablo Diaz-Francis, Adriano Fraporti, and Oscar Sid. They are now 39 laps into their current stint as Francis crosses the start-finish line.
And of course, with that caution, of course, I can imagine Francis will go a little bit longer on fuel, perhaps around 52, I would imagine. Something like that, 52, 53 laps maybe. But either way, this is going to be a situation where it's going to be a question of, does another caution come out? And if it does, when will it happen? Because if a caution does not come out now, Francis is looking to be in a very strong position overall, because with the leaders, with guys like Demerit, Nacho LDR,
they have to stop
Matthew
again.
Mercer and such, they are going to have to pit again for a splash of fuel.
There is Adriano Fraporti in that green, white, and red liveried car, P2 currently right now. Right behind him in that bright green liveried car, SRT Racing on the side, is Oscar Sid. And Christopher Demerit is pretty much, you've said it already before, that he's kind of reached a point of a level playing field now with these tires, with the other cars around him. He's kind of stalled out in P4, but he doesn't really need to necessarily race very hard, because if this goes green, all three of the guys in front of him are going to stop for their pit stop, and he'll just assume the lead until it comes time to make his.
Very much so. And I would imagine that, as funny as it may sound, one of the situations that he'd either love or hate, depending on when it happens, is if a caution comes out after Francis has pitted. He will have the lead there, but still he will have to come in and top off the fuel. Depending on how quick the stops can be, which they can be fairly quick here, but this track only has about 24-second lap times. It's actually dipped into 25 seconds right now, looking at Demerit's lap times. But it still could be at the point where if a caution comes out and Demerit is stayed out, whereas all the leaders have come in, he may trap those guys a lap down, and they're going to have to fight their way back up through the field. They will get waged around the pace car more likely than not, but they are still going to lose that track position if that's the case.
Quickly coming to the first round of stops for our leaders. The field is pretty well strung out. Not terribly close battles on the racetrack at the moment. Actually, you're looking at the closest one. That's between Victor Santos and Dakota DeMaid. There's about 0.3 of a second separating these two. But most everyone else is separated by about a half second or more.
Yeah, and this has gotten to the point where everybody's tires are not really permitting them to run up close to each other like this. As we said before when the program started, this wasn't expected to be a big pack race. This isn't exactly like when the street stocks race here, but it's getting to the point where these guys are still wheeling these cars that may look serene looking at it from afar, but these guys are going through their settings, seeing if they have the car the way they want it to be able to maintain their track position, maybe even creep up a little bit on the guy in front of them. As Dakota DeMag is running as close as he believes he can there, and he's trying to find his way to stay up close to Victor Santos while preserving his tires for as long as possible because he doesn't want to overcook him as well.
Yeah, he is in the draft envelope for sure. Draft envelope of these cars extends about a second and a half back, but also keep in mind when you're also in that draft envelope, you are in the aero wash envelope. So where you were gaining speed, you are probably going to lose in handling in the corners. Currently, we are watching this battle right now for P9, P10 between Santos and DeMay. That is the closest on the racetrack. I will say, in '97, I went to the first IRL race here, and it really wasn't. And I always said that if IndyCar ever went to one of the big NASCAR tracks back in the day, I would definitely go. And when they announced Charlotte and the Visionaire 500K, I was immediately calling the ticket office to get tickets. But even then, that wasn't a pack race. You pretty much, they spread out a little bit like this, but there are really about a pack of 2 or 3 cars that were able to really race hard and a race to kind of crowd pleasing for everybody, because no one was really used to seeing open wheel cars running that close, which then that format later became a staple in much larger packs of the Indy Racing League before they decided to, you know what, let's settle some things down, and they kind of have gone away from pack racing for the most part.
That is very much true. I recall watching races from tracks like Chicagoland Speedway, which I believe to this day still holds the record for the closest finish in IndyCar history between Sam Hornish Jr. and Al Unser Jr. in 2002. 24 10,000ths of a second was the margin of victory for Sam Hornish in that race. And the top 11 cars were all bunched up with each other at the end of that 200-lap event. So it was exciting to watch, no doubt about that, but there were some very, very scary
Leader is
accidents.
pitting.
Pablo Diaz-Francis comes down on the pit road, locks up that left front tire, getting down to 50 miles an hour on the limiter. This is the money stop right now for Francis.
Yeah, he cannot afford to overshoot his pit stall, go too far forward, not forward enough, too much to the left. And this will be his stop to get him to the end. He is in, slides in, and it looks like he is on the marks and ready to go as we're riding on board with him right now. Let's watch him as he comes down off the pneumatic jacks, comes to the cones, gets off the button for the pit limiter, and let's watch it. It gets very slippery as these cars are trying to come up to speed, and especially when they round this corner, it gets very bumpy as they try to rejoin the racing surface.
Of course, per iRacing rules, he cannot come up in the middle of turns 1 and 2 for safety reasons. He'll be bought with a black flag if he does. He gets out there cleanly, and now
reporting on pit road.
It's up to the racing gods now. Fraporti, Oscar Seed, they're both on pit road as well. So Demerit now cycles to the lead, and he's actually got Nacho LDR and Matthew Mercer all bunched up on him. We were actually just talking about pack racing now. We actually got a little bit of a pack for the race lead at the moment. Yeah, we do. It's just all kind of snuck up. So now we got a whole gaggle of cars that are, and Thomas Geisler, he moves down underneath and takes the lead from the Demerit going into turn 4. The old man of the cruise leading it going into turn 1. What a move, Thomas Geisler. From 4th to the lead in a single lap, fantastically done. These guys are going to have to get all the track position they can, but they also got to be careful because Pablo Diaz-Francis right now, as well as Oscar C. and Fraporti, they are on hot laps right now. They are digging right now on those fresh tires. So this is going to be, like, everyone has played their hand right now. How are the cards going to come out on this poker table?
Well, we are watching the current battle of the hour on the racetrack between P1 Thomas Geisler and P2 Christopher Demerit, and not too far behind Nacho LDR and Trace Shadid, as they're basically, you can throw a blanket over the top 4 right now at the moment, and slowly making his way into the picture, and has slowly been working his way up and through the he's been actually in the top 10 all night long, just kind of hovering in the middle part is Matthew Mercer.
And Mercer's run a pretty quiet but effective race so far. He's not really making too much noise, but at times it's kind of what you want, really. And he's doing a very solid job right now in 5th position.
Here comes Thomas Geisler to the pits.
Geisler to pit road right now. So Demerit once again cycles back to the point. Nacho LDR, Trace Shadid, Matthew Mercer, and Victor Santos are your top 5 at the moment. Still a lot of question marks remain. Are we going to have a caution is probably the biggest
Check
one.
out for Porty, and that's what I want to take a look at here. Here's the difference between fresh tires and used tires right there.
Very much so. Frapporti gets by Demerit. That is certainly what he wants.
And that gets him back on the lead lap, I believe.
Yes, it does get him back on the lead lap. He is being scored right there in the 16th position at the moment, as Aaron Ruffs also comes on the pit road. So Frapporti is going to get by him, and more cars are coming on the pit road. Pablo Francis is up to 11th at the moment. So right now, even though Francis is running the wheels off of that number 2 machine, he is gonna leaving a lot of this up to fate as it is right now. It's kind of the game you always have to play in any sort of racing
check this
series.
out, going into turns 3 and 4. Santos was there with his teammate Oscar Sid, and he had to try to find a way to let him by. All the while, also racing for the lead with Christopher Merritt.
Yeah, playing the good teammate. I definitely appreciate that. I love it when my teammates do that as well. Not just to me, and I try to do it for my teammates as well when they're in an advantageous position. So I'm sure that both Sid is happy with that, and the fact that Victor Santos now cycles to the lead of the race.
Yeah, and if you just caught a glimpse of it down our shot down the backstretch, Santos is starting to do the snake a little bit. It's not too early to do that. We are getting really close to the end of this race. Lap 63 of 75. If you're just joining us, this is race first coverage of Monday Night Indy Fix Top Split. Currently, right now, your leader is Victor Santos, followed by Christopher Demerit and Nacho LDR, and they're all within that picture right there on your screen, right there. 1, 2, and 3 all together.
And as we mentioned before, you can see Victor Santos weaving around on the back straightaway, trying to throw Demerit out of the draft, trying to limit his options and give him a little bit of aero wash going into turn 3 in particular. That is going to hold him up a noticeable amount there.
But these guys are going to have to stop here soon.
Very true as well. These guys are pleading with the racing gods right now to throw a yellow and preserve that track position as much as they possibly can. Even though at this point, looking at the rest of the guys that we were looking about in contention for a win, Pablo Diaz-Francis is up to 7th right now. He is very much back on the lead lap, so he will still cycle to the lead if they do have a caution either way. So this is looking very, very advantageous right now for that number 7 machine, but that number 2 machine, I should say, running in 7th.
And he might be sitting on the master strategy right now. Maybe it was the right decision to stay out.
We have a car slow on the front straightaway. It is Trey Shadid in the number 5. No, it's not Trey Shadid. There was someone going very slowly on the front stretch with the wheel
Mark
all
Murphy.
askew.
Mark Murphy. Looks like he might have smacked the wall. He has a wobbler right now coming through turns 1 and 2 as he's down on the apron, missing a wing and everything. Let's take a real quick look in the replay at kind of what happened here, and then we'll get back up to the lead.
Of course, because he got it down off the track.
And yeah, it's looking very similar to kind of what. Oh yeah, and he had a car coming to his outside, kind of surprised him, but it was kind of similar to what we saw Diego Perino had. And he goes through the infield grass and then comes back out into the tri-oval area. Cars doing evasive action to get around him, but it looks like his day is done.
And as Murphy was coming on the pit road, he actually spun coming on a pit road here. He has gathered up and he's making his way back to his pit stall. But that is just terrible luck for that number 20 machine. It was running in the top 10 at the time of that incident. But right now, looking at it, but I will say this right now, looking at lap times right now, if you want to have an example of how fast the leaders are working right now, Pablo Diaz-Francis now has a 3-second gap to the leader, Victor Santos. It was 7 seconds a few laps prior.
Yeah, Victor Santos is actually on pit road right now currently with James Kennedy right behind him.
And if you want an example of how quick Francis is right now, he is over and he is nearly a second faster than the current leader, Christopher Demerit. His last lap was a 24.8. Demerit was a 25.7. So Francis is on a tear. He's looking strong to reclaim that top spot.
Yeah, and he's going to do it without the aid of these cars stopping. He is going to do it the old-fashioned way on the racetrack.
The way I'm sure he always wanted that to happen, as he looks down to the low line on demerit for the race lead. And he gets it handed.
Yeah, he does. But I always say the easiest pass is the one when they're in the pits.
That is definitely true. I can confirm. And in some ways, it is rather anticlimactic. It may seem it's not quite as romantic as battling it out on the circuit itself.
4 laps to go, and Pablo Diaz-Francis, and there's a caution, and this might be the race. This might be the race.
Trying to find what exactly happened. And the crazy thing with all this, demerit looks set to finish second. We were worried he wouldn't be able to make it to the end of this race on fuel.
Yeah, he's dead. Well, there still might be a question because the pits are closed. But right now it's 3 laps to go, so I think he's going to be holding that clutch in quite a bit. And I cannot find who brought out that caution. It might have been Mark Murphy again. I don't know. But I do want to bring our cameras back up to the front to Pablo Diaz-Francis, who is now under the control of the iRacing pace car and is getting ready to exit Charlotte turn number 4 and come down to take not quite the white flag yet, but 2 to go from the starter.
And one question mark I still have right now, as you mentioned before, is Christopher Demerit on fuel. He's got to be, I can imagine he's looking at that fuel gauge going like, please don't cough. Please don't cough. I want as many points as I can out of this race. It's been a fantastic showing so far for Demerit, doing everything he possibly could to
60
hold
laps.
out Pablo Diaz-Francis at the end of that race.
60 laps on that stint. 60 laps on that stint. Also, Nacho LDR, 60 laps. Alan Moreira, who's moved up to P4. Let's give him a shout out. He's up 9 positions. He last pitted 58 laps ago. So your gasman of this race, Demerit, LDR, and Moreira, they managed to be the master economists of saving fuel on this run. That's going to definitely give them a top 5.
Fuel map settings, it
yeah,
seems,
they are.
as well as saving fuel in the draft. You can certainly get a few laps more out of the tank by running in the draft of another car and by feathering the throttle and playing with your fuel map. And Demerit seems to have played that pretty well if he can hold on to that for one more lap. Come down to the white flag. Pablo Diaz-Francis has had seemingly the dominant car of the night, even though he qualified second. But he came out of the gate looking for a win, and he's going to get it tonight. He certainly had the pace for it.
Yeah, a little bit of Pablo, a little bit of redemption for Pablo last week at Phoenix. Kind of got in the back of a car, and it kind of cost him some time on the racetrack with some repairs. And he was never really with the in contention from there on out after that. So definitely feels like redeeming himself as he is now under the command of the pace car, going down the backstretch. All he has to do is navigate turns 3 and 4 under power, and he has this race in hand.
Very much so. Another fantastic night of racing in the IndyCar Fixed Series. And Charlotte Motor Speedway, as much as it may be cursed in real world when it comes to open wheel racing, it usually puts on a good show in the sim racing world, and that it certainly has done tonight. As we work our way off of turn number 4, behind the pace car, unfortunately, for Pablo Diaz-Francis. I'm sure he wanted it to be up to speed, but that number 2 machine, Pablo Diaz-Francis, redeems himself for Phoenix, and he takes the checkered flag at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Christopher Demerit does indeed hold on to finish second on fumes. Nacho LDR rounds out that podium.
And let's bring up the final standings here, and then we'll check the booth and see if there is anyone that would like to talk to us about their race. But Monday Night Indy Fixed, round 4 from the Legacy Charlotte Motor Speedway. Your podium tonight and your winner, first of all, Pablo Diaz-Frances, Christopher Demerit, and Nacho LDR. That's your podium. Your top 5 is Al Morera and Adriano Faporti. Your top 10, Oscar Sid, Thomas Geisler, Dakota DeMaig, Daniel Riffero, and Matthew Mercer, making up the top 10. Your top 15 is Trace Shadid, Aaron Rufus, Victor Santos, James Kennedy, and Diego Pirino in 15th. Moving on, your top 21 is Christian Nassan, Stephen Lee, Mark Murphy, Yvonne Drolet, Andre Rigon in P20, and John Silva in P21.
And a very nice burnout for a well-deserved victory for Pablo Diaz-Frances.
And his teammates out there celebrating with him. Gonna burn that thing down, just right to the ground.
I think it's safe to say he's got enough fuel to go for quite a while. And amazingly, there's Christopher Demerit still running.
Doing the, oh, he's on the Legends track. Okay, all right, so he's going to go back to his pit stall and call it a night.
Some ways, I'm sure he's wondering what it would be like to race these things around that quarter-mile Legends Oval. But
no.
The result would not be too pretty. It certainly wouldn't be as pretty as this race was tonight.
Oh, he's coming back out again. Now he's on the Legends course, and he's in the turn 1. Now he's in the turn 2.
It's almost as if he heard me.
Heading down the backstretch there at the Legends course, breaking in the turn 3 and the turn 4. And completing one lap of the Legends course, Christopher Demerit.
I swear it's like he heard me talking about the Legends Oval, and he's like, let's try it. Steve inspired me to do it.
Well, let's go ahead and bring up the final results one more time. But we do have Dakota DeMaid sitting in the interview room. It doesn't look like we have any of the top 3. So we might go ahead and bring in Dakota. Dakota finished in P8, excuse me. I'll bring him on in here. Hey, Dakota, we're going to bring you into the booth just to get the expert analysis, on-track analysis of how it was out there tonight. Looked like passing was pretty tough to come by once the tires went away.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but yeah, it definitely was kind of tough. The high line wasn't there. High line was difficult in 1 and 2, and it was not there in 3 and 4 at all. So you kind of just had to make your moves in 1 and 2, and hope you can get in there. It's almost kind of like Kentucky almost.
About the conditions, though. I mean, how long were your tires really good for? And after that, when did they start to really become? Was it about 11 laps in or so?
Yeah, you're right. About 10, 11 laps in is when that first caution came out, and I can feel the tires start to wear down. So decided to go in, get some fresh rubber, and see if I can make my way up through the field. But even then, it was still kind of difficult, and it's kind of not a good restart. So,
well, not a bad showing, all things considered. You finished P8. So that's a top 10. You moved up 2 spots, so you started 10th. You finished higher than you started, so not too bad. How would you rate your performance tonight?
Above average, I suppose. Not exceptional, but I think I made a good move following Thomas on pit road, because a lot of the other cars were going for fuel saving, and I was about 3 laps short. So I decided I didn't want to take that gamble and just get some fresh tires, and you make up a ton of ground. So unfortunately, that yellow came out there, and I think Chris Demerit was going to run out. So quite a few other cars were going to run out of fuel, and could have gotten a top 5 or maybe even a podium. But oh well, sometimes the cards just don't work out in your favor.
Yeah, Christopher Demerit went 61 laps on that last stint, and Nacho LDR went 61 laps in his stint. And Alan Moreira at P4 went 59. But if that finished on the green and 3 of those guys had to stop, I mean, you're looking at a top 5. So, I mean, not too bad. If things fell the other way, yeah, you're probably looking at a slightly better night. But I don't think you really have anything to be upset about. While we got you here, shout outs. Anybody want to say hi to?
Yeah, shout out to Sunset Arctic Games, my company and my sponsor. You can check me out on Twitter at Sunset Arctic. Echo Blade is a new game on Steam coming out next month, and you can also check out Voltic Pistol. And shout out to Matt Houston on Raceverse, who runs the channel. He does a great job. And a shout out to Alyssa as well, because I think she's watching.
All right, well, there you have it. Go to the Mid P8 tonight after starting 10th. We'll catch you next week as we go to Chicagoland. All right. So one more time as we review the starting lineups and we look forward to next week. Steven, you'll be with me again next week. Tell us about your analysis of tonight's race and then looking forward to Chicagoland.
Well, Charlotte Motor Speedway once again put on a very solid show tonight. It did come down to some really good fuel-saving strategy, mostly helped out by a caution coming out at the last moment. Christopher Demerit was indeed on the limit when it came to fuel, and in some ways you can expect sort of similar things next week at Chicagoland. It will likely be it'll be something similar in terms of distance. And Chicagoland Speedway, with even higher banks than Charlotte, and with a history of great side-by-side racing, that is certainly going to be a fantastic show to watch. Charlotte usually puts on a good show, and Chicagoland also does not disappoint either.
All right, well, that will do it for tonight. Once again, your podium from Legacy Charlotte Motor Speedway is Pablo Diaz-Francis, Christopher Demerit, and Nacho LDR. Join us next week as the series moves to Chicagoland Speedway for round 5 of Monday night Indy Split. Let's hear the getting out of here music, and we'll get on out of here. Now, please do leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought of tonight's race. Like, share, and subscribe. And while you're at it, hit the bell for weekly reminders of other Raceverse iRacing programming, such as the PRI Formula Indy Series on Tuesdays and the BMW Car Club of America Sim Racing Series on Thursdays. And soon, starting December 1st, the Reddit IndyCar League returns, now known as the Revolution IndyCar League, for Season 4 of the Schaefer IndyCar Series. To learn more about Raceverse and what we do, visit raceverse.com or follow us on Twitter. You can follow me, Gary Gotso, on Twitter at Gary Gotso. Thanks everyone who took time to watch. Be sure to join myself and Steven again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So for Steven Larkamp and everyone at Raceverse, I'm Gary Gotso saying all stay happy and healthy. And to all our men and women serving in the military and as first responders, Godspeed, God bless, and come home safe. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time for the next race of Monday Night Split. Good night.